Sid is so invested in making an image as mundane that he even dreams about how to sound cool and create a memorable impression. He is disturbed by Skell banging on his door and asking him to help him find Rose, not because she is an acquaintance, but because Skell is broke and the one who finds her gets prize money. Sid is unbothered other than thinking about it being a daring and interesting move by Rose. Skell tries to be convincing by literally being in Sid's face, so he bends backwards and hangs halfway out of the window. He gets a visual of Alexia walking towards the dorm, so he goes back in his room, gets dressed, grabs the ranting friend, and jumps out of the window with the excuse of not wasting any time in finding her. Sid walks around the town thinking that he will definitely ask Rose what made her take such a bold step of stabbing her fiancé. He stops midway hearing someone play piano. He learned how to play piano in his past life, but here he initially thought it would be a waste of time. Well, that was only until he found it as an excuse to look busy while practicing and be left alone to focus on his training to be the eminence in shadow. Plus, he has got to have some aesthetics while being such a prominent shadow. His favorite melody, Moonlight Sonata, was being played, so he went to take a look since it did not originally exist in this world. Who could be the one playing it then, other than one of the shadow-obsessed ones from Shadow Garden? Sid is a little disappointed at the audacious plagiarism by first Gamma, then Beta, and now Epsilon, but it is also true that Epsilon is playing it well. She sees Shadow and greets him while excitedly telling him about learning piano from him, and using these melodies as hers to become a famous pianist and composer. This is also allowing her to blend in with influential people since she is soon going to visit the Oriana Kingdom too. This distracts Shadow from judging Epsilon, and he asks if she knows anything about Rose, but she tells him Beta is keeping tabs on that matter, and all she knows is that she is taking refuge in the underground tunnels of the royal capital. This is enough information for Sid and leaves but stops in the corridor grinning while looking at the piano. Alexia and Beta walk down some dark stairs while Alexia thanks Beta on behalf of Iris for the information she provided. They are almost sure that Perv Asshat belongs to the Cult of Diablos, but this is not a matter as simple as that. Even Alexia's father told her they would need a lot of solid evidences and convincing to make people believe that the biggest religion of divine teaching is linked to the Cult of Diablos. She tells Beta that her father does not want her to mess with the divine teachings. Beta points out him stepping back like he always has but apologizes since the one she is speaking to is his daughter. Alexia ignores this mentioning Iris sharing that Rose's father seemed vacant when she visited Oriana Kingdom, and she even sensed a weird smell around him. She seems to be worried that the cult will reach their kingdom soon with the way her father works things out. Beta finally decides to ask where this stairway is headed, so Alexia tells her it leads to the giant underground passage that lies across the capital. She jokes about going to dispose Beta's body, so Beta lamely acts scared after a while. They are going down inside a giant maze to look for Rose without any maps or knowledge of the pathway, which is a reckless behavior in Beta's sight. Rose rests on the ground with the red marks of her bulging veins spreading up to her face. She thinks about her visit when she was appalled to see the state of her father and attacked Asshat in a rush of emotions. But since all the guards were in control of Asshat, things turned down for her and she had to escape. At that time, it felt like the right thing to do, but now she has her doubts. Asshat had warned her he will make her father kill some guest if she doesn't turn herself in by the end of Bushin Festival. Besides, the roots of the cult have spread deep down the Oriana Kingdom, so killing Asshat is not the solution. She thinks of turning herself in to avoid war, and then remembers Sid telling her he will believe in her always, but who would have known she is possessed and can't really do much? The effect on her seems to worsen. She comes across Mr. Shadow and waits for the melody to end to clap for the best of it she has ever heard. Shadow turns towards her, asking what she has been aiming to do. Rose expresses her wrong move, making Shadow question if she is going to give up here. This hits a nerve, and she exclaims she wanted the best for everyone. Shadow shows his willingness to grant her power if she promises to keep up the fight since her success depends entirely on her. She tells him she needs the power to save her kingdom, so with a huge light of magic, Rose is cured and given the power. He suddenly disappears and the people of the cult appear. It takes Rose only a single strike to end them this time. Alexia and Beta rush towards the immense magical energy they just witnessed and finally come across the princess they have been looking for. Alexia asks her questions, but Rose only tells her that she has obtained the power she needs to follow the path she wants, and she won't be sharing anything with Alexia, so she is not even remotely involved in the matter. Alexia shows her insistence and even proceeds to use force to have her answers. Rose and Alexia get into a combat of immense force, while Beta calmly observes them. After a while, Rose walks towards Beta carrying Alexia and apologizing about not being able to share anything. Beta tells her she has no right to stop her, but also hints that their alliance was not entirely useless and that they might be crossing paths again very soon. After Rose leaves, Beta thinks if this is what Shadow has chosen for them. While the lounge people worry about their piano disappearing in broad daylight, Sid walks content with his performance of the day, only to come across his sister waiting for her with a creepily sweet smile. Claire chokes Sid while taking out her anger at him. The reason is that Sid does not accompany her home during holidays, but he always bails out on his promises to her, as if they mean nothing to him. So, while she waited outside his dorm, her anger rose while thinking about ways to beat him to a pulp. Sid is simply taking in the abuse and waiting for her to let go of him whenever she wants. She then leaves Sid with the last chance of giving her the ticket for reserved seats at the Bushin Festival to watch her fight in place of Princess Rose. Sid dodges a bullet by covering up that he knew she was substituting for Rose, while Claire gives him a warning to stop ignoring her if he wants a happy and healthy life. That is some weird love for siblings. Alexia gets the news of Beta leaving the country for her research, but finds a file about the Oriana Kingdom left for her. Alexia does not want this pity favor because she refuses to pity herself anymore. Sid is surprised to see the hyper VIP lounge where he does not fit at all. He looks for a seat and comes across the seat beside Iris. She asks who he is. Sid introduces himself and tries to leave with the excuse of being in the wrong seat, but Iris recognizes him being Claire's brother from his surname and praises Claire, announcing her already decided job in Iris's order and telling Sid that he is at the right seat. Iris then apologizes to Sid for the past events related to Alexia and thanks him for being a good friend to Alexia. Sid is honest in saying he was just catching the coins thrown by Alexia like a dog, but Iris does not know the arrogant and violent nature of her sister. Iris talks about finding Anna Rose, an interesting competitor this year, while the two students beside her keep sucking up to her praising that she will win. Sid intervenes, asking if any other interesting players are making the two students wonder who he is. After realizing he dated Alexia and is Claire's brother, they kind of look down on his fencing skills as compared to Claire. Sid is unbothered and mentions the name of Mundane. Iris has not seen him fight, but the two others only think he is surviving on luck, with just his speed being the skill up until now. Sid grins secretly for acing the impression he wanted of Mundane. Iris then mentions another player worth watching, but she isn't participating. It is the war goddess, the elf Beatrix. She was the first champion of the Bushin Festival and is here as a spectator this year. She will be observed for her aim to be here since she has not shown her face for over a decade. Sid thinks he didn't know she could be this strong and then gets up to leave with the excuse of powdering his nose. On his way through the corridor, Beatrix calls upon him. The two get into a weird banter about Beatrix asking if he saw an elf like her and if he is avoiding her, while Sid keeps his replies curt and fast. Beatrix then tells him she thought she could find her in this tournament, which makes sense since a lot of people visit this festival. Sid and Beatrix then exchange burgers from each of their bags full of burgers and leave, ending this eventful and fast conversation. Perv Asshat visits Iris when the students are not around and gets into a discussion about both the kings of Midgar and Oriana Kingdom visiting the next day. He then talks about the combat about to begin between Anaros and Mundane. Iris praises Anaros that she will be a good member for their knights, but she also mentions that the winner of this fight is still uncertain. Even though Mundane looks like he cannot win, the certainty and confidence in his eyes say otherwise. Asshat then decides they should see what this confidence is worth then. As the battle begins, Anaros decides that the only way to outsmart Mundane's ways is to not let him use his speed, and that is possible if she does not give him a chance to move. Anaros thinks she has got him on her third strike, but that was just a build-up by Mundane. It takes him a moment to move, showing her he is faster than she thought. Anaros is thrown around by the attacks of Mundane, and she knows she would have been defeated by now if Mundane had put any magic into it. Now the only way she can find an edge is to counterattack rather than attack. Mundane comes around from behind her, making Anaros exhibit perfect retaliation, but it would only have worked if she was matching his attack. It was a bait by Mundane, and he delayed his attack to end the combat. Iris and Asshat praise this unknown man for his sharp, sure, and beautiful sword skills. However, Iris is still confident that she is going to beat him, not in terms of caliber, but just because she is determined to win. Asshat leaves, asking one of his subordinates to get some information about this Mundane, because if he is backed by some underground organization, he can serve as a potential threat to them. He drops the possibility of him belonging to Shadow Garden, because he doesn't think Shadow Garden has any reason to be involved in the Bushin Festival. It makes sense, but nobody understands the dramatic nature of the leader of Shadow Garden. Anna Rose meets Mundane and praises him. Mundane also praises her skills, telling her she isn't weak. He tells her he got her strength by ignoring the world, and he has no interest in the world that is too bright for him. But the guy doesn't know he left a path to look up to for Anna Rose. Iris wins her fight effortlessly, but leaves in a rush when she witnesses Beatrix. She catches up to Beatrix outside and introduces herself, only to get offered a burger by Beatrix. Iris confusedly yet politely denies the offer and Beatrix leaves. Sid walks back to his dorm, happy with the events of the day. Now his last aim for the festival is to defeat Princess Iris and disappear from the place. He thinks about the dramatic statements he is going to use while taking his exit and happily turns towards his block, only to find his sister standing in the shadow once again with the creepiest smile. She creepily asks if he must have felt this happy while watching her match, making Sid realize he is in some deep trouble.